Hello everybody, welcome to join my session using shell scripts to validate the RMAN Backupsets and regularly doing the test of RMAN backup and restore. I would like to say thank you so much for giving up your valuable time to attend my live presentation. Please allow me introduce myself. I am Quanwen Zhao, come from China, and is an Oracle DBA with more than 7.5 years using Oracle database. Currently, I'm working in Taiji Computer Company. Before starting this session, I want to share a small piece of story with you. My good friend Mia Sun has frequently finished publishing several articles on her WeChat individual subscription number in English. Nevertheless, she isn't satisfied with this. She also tries to talk about her stories in audio English and next to upload them to YouTube next day. She is a business development director. You know, I'm inspired by her behavior. So, I decided to challenge myself like her and speak this session in English. You know, I'm a Chinese, not native English speaker. I have to say sorry if my some English words pronunciation makes you uncomfortable. Please forgive me. Alright, let's formally start my session speaking. Now, I am focusing on Oracle database and permanently responsible for daily maintain, troubleshooting, performance optimization, and etc. And I'm also being devoted to automation of operation and maintain through several scripts. Of course, these scripts contain Linux Shell and Oracle Circle or PL Circle. What? In this slide, as you can see, there are 4 sections for the introduction all about me. I am seasoned on Linux Shell and Circle script. I would like to communicate Oracle technology with my guys, domestic and overseas. I've also more than once published original articles on multiple WeChat official accounts, including Day and Cloud, Digital Oracle, and DBA Plus. On the other hand, I usually write my own scripts, including Shell, Circle, and PL Circle by my GitHub repository. For Johnson Loy's inspiration, I started writing my blog notes on WordPress since 2018 because I have some confusion after reading his OneNote and managed to write some comments. Though I have to install an account of WordPress for making a comment. That's why my blog is coming. Fortunately, so far, there are totally 54 number of blog notes on it. Okay, you can contact me from the former 3 methods in China and the latter 3 ways in other countries all around the world. They are separately my email, QQ, WeChat, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Now, this slide is the Oracle ACE program introduction. It's the latest version currently, and Oracle recommends and encourages you to add it to your session. Why? Because Oracle community is a very great and amazing family where you can meet various friends who come from many countries. They are able to learn Oracle knowledge each other and help others as possible as you can. This is a powerful and warm stress in the ACE family. You know, there are 3 membership tiers in the Oracle ACE program: ACE Director, ACE, and ACE Associate. If you want to know more details, please read this link and want to nominate yourself or someone, please go to this link. In this slide, I hope to tell you what the source of this slide background page is. As you can see from the top picture, which is from gettogether.oracle.com. You can also see from the bottom logos, which is from www.apacgpt.com and contains the 2 main sponsors. The agenda of my session contains the following 3 number of sections: the details introduction of 2 types of shell scripts. Using RMAN validate version 2.s8 to validate the RMAN Backupsets. Regularly doing the test of RMAN backup and restore. By the way, the first section also includes 2 parts: RMAN validate version 2.s8, RMAN backup and restore experiment. Exactly speaking, it's a directory in which it includes 5 number of shell script files. Now, let's take a look at the first part in the first section. I will show you some details of this shell script file, RMAN validate version 2.sh. This section, I will use next 4 slides to show the previous shell script. It's the first one. Here, I use plenty of annotations, starting with theme in each line to describe some cases before letting my shell script file. I think this is a good habit to know what the purpose of your shell script is. Even if it passed away a long time, you can still remember it. For example, as you can see in the top side, my name, my email, and my blog website. Perhaps you found my blog is different from the preceding one. Yeah, I started using WordPress due to inspiring by Jonathan since 2018, and just wrote something during the period of 2015 to 2017 on my old blog. this on my old blog. In the middle side, I classify them into 5. They are respectively database, operating system environment, file, class, and purpose. And in the bottom is note. Which ensures you test it in your test environment before attempting to run it in production system. This is the second one. I also highlight the number of points in this slide. As you can see, these places, well, I mark them using a red color rectangle box respectively. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Number 1 is source command used to export environment settings of Oracle user. Number 2 is export command used to declare the global variables. They contains 2 categories: the absolute path of the cell command such as orc and date. Number 2 is strings and executing result of a couple of cell operators reverse tick, like this. This is the third one. As you can see, I use a couple of cell operators reverse tick to return or retrieve or select query results, one column, multiple lines, 1, connecting to my Oracle database by Circle Plus command line interface, and to save them to a cell variable BSK list. You should be familiar with the circle statement. I just acquire the value of column BSK in the Oracle Dynamic Performance view with $backup_set details. You are also wondering why I use another cell variable BSK list with comma to process the value of variable BSK list. Let me give you a sensible explanation. My intention is that converting a bunch of date showing with a column into the format showing with a row separated by commas. It is very useful. You will got it in my next slide. Well, it's the fourth one. This is a very important portion in my shell script RMAN validate version 2.sh. The statement validating entire RMAN Backupsets is validate Backupsets BSK list with comma check logical. Luckily, validate supports RMAN Backupset list with comma separated. At this moment, you should understand my preceding method. Now, let's take a look at the first part in the second section. I will show you some details of this shell script, RMAN backup and restore experiment. Exactly speaking, it's a directory in which it includes 5 number of shell script files. One is its mutual trust Linux for source.sh, its mutual trust Linux for target.sh, collect info from source oracle.sh, scp logfile to target.sh, RMAN restore and recover to target oracle.sh. Before we start reading the parallel or series of source scripts, we should first take a close look at the README file, readme english.txt, this, which is conducive to make us more clearly understanding the internal processes of RMAN backup and restore. In this slide, I show you the full content of readme english.txt. The first portion is the summary. Next, I introduce each shell script file's special function in the second one here. And finally, it is the executing process of each shell script file. In other words, showing you first running which shell script, next is, and last. Actually, they have always been running from 1 to 5 in sequence, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in this order to execute. From this slide on, I will separately introduce the previous 5 number of shell script files. So this is the first one, setting as its mutual trust Linux for source.sh. As you can see, I first define some shell variables with command replace. Using a couple shell operators, reverse tick to return the running results of wait, date, echo, host name, pin, and so on. Next, I give an example about how to add the remote host to file etc hosts. Here, I just add IP address and username of remote host. Here. I check if the remote host is reachable in this section, and you can see that has some annotations in the top. Next, I use pin command to pin username of the remote host. The following is some condition statement for pinning reachable on pinning reachable or unreachable. It's most important stuff in the shell script file as its mutual trust Linux for source.sh. Creating as its private and public key on source host. Next, copy the public key to the target host. Alright. the prior 3 slides, I introduced the function setting SSH mutual trust on source host. The content of this slide is very simple. It's about the same function as preceding several slides, just setting SSH mutual trust on target host. So I have to say the step of target site is very similar than source site, and you can also see I use a special log file with current date to save all the output information when running the first 2 SSH shell script files. Now, it's the third shell script. Oh, I'm sorry. Target. Yeah. Now, it's a third shell script. Collect info from source oracle.sh. Here. You can see from this slide I list total 28 variables on the screenshot in the right side. After running the shell script, I will have finished collecting the values of all these variables in the meantime, saving them to the corresponding each variable. You know, that has 694 lines in this shell script file. So I only capture the most important section at least, I think. In other words, querying the value of total 28 number of variables and save them to a log file, tmp source oracle db info.log. Okay, this is the fourth shell script, scp log file to target.sh here. As you can see from my screenshot in the right side, the shell script file uses to remote copy the previous generated log file using scp command to the target host with the same location as the source host. Here. Yeah. In this slide, I will introduce the last shell script, restoring and recovering the Oracle database of the source host to the target host. From the right side screenshot, you can see that I have to capture the most important something I think, because that has 536 lines in this shell script file. You know, I had creating 8 number of basic directory on the target host. For example, including these directories, archive log, database, archive log, database file, blockchain tracking file, and so on. Now, let's start my second content of my session. Using RMAN validate version 2.sh to validate the RMAN backup sets. Here, I give an example of a full RMAN backup situation of Oracle database on the production environment during the 1 week. Please check the picture as follows. Although my example is a bit old, my source script also can be run on your current environment. This slide shows you the generated RMAN validation log files during the 1 week, and you can see 1 week and 7 days. Next, let's check the validation log file content of Friday generated on Saturday night. You can see from the following screenshots, Oracle is validating RMAN data file. This backup set one by one. Notice the approach to RMAN validation is logical, and just check the integrity for observing whether they can be completely restored and recovered on the target host. This slide follows the previous one. Next, validating RMAN backup set of archive log here, archive log and control file you found out from this picture. We should check RMAN backup set files generated on Friday in this slide. I use a Linux command ls with some sort parameters to list all of files. Please note, the validation log files generated on other 6 days are similar to something being described on Friday, so I won't repeat the demonstration. This is the third section of my agenda, regularly doing the test of RMAN backup and restore. From this slide to the almost end of my session, I will demonstrate in turn process of RMAN restore and recover using those 5 number of shell scripts previously mentioned. Firstly, I run this shell script named ssh source.sh on the source host to establish the ssh mutual trust with the target host. You can see from my screen, ping remote host is reachable because you have seen the spending time that returns back to the local host. Here you can see the name of localhost and remote host. Next, I will make sure the location still in the key. There are two places to be input, pass, freeze, and again. Here, I both hit the enter key. Next, I input yes. Yes. In this slide, you can see I need to input the target host password of Oracle user. Here. Yeah. After this, the setting SSH on the source host is finished. Yeah. Now I input SSH target host name on the source host and the connection is established successfully without password. Yeah, and I can connect to the target host. So, next 3 slides, I will do the same steps on the target host by running SSH target.sh. You can quickly glance at it. 1, this is 1, 2, 3, now it's time to run this shell script. Collect source oracle.sh on the source host. Just spend only a few minutes finishing it. You have seen the location of log file generated, and next it has listed some basic information on the source host on my screenshot. Apart from the basic information on the source host, you might have also seen the prompt message. Please using scp command to remote copy that log file to target host, whose location is the same as source host. Here. So, in this slide, here is some content of the previous log file source oracledbinfo.log. Here is some content. As you can see, due to the size of this log file has only a little, as you can see, it immediately copies to the target host by running the shell script scp log file to target.sh. It shows scp to the target host successfully. Now, This is a critical, also last step, executing on the target host. Meanwhile, a log file with current date has been generated after running my last shell script. Because too much information has been outputted during the execution of the script, it will also be returned to log file with a date format. If we directly check contents of this file, we will have clearly understood the entire RMAN restore and recovery process. In this slide, you can see the bound log file includes the bound log file includes following 11 steps. For example, finishing SCP listening file, password file, and all RMAN Backupsets files to the target host, restoring date files and undo date files, and so on, from 1 to 11, totaling 11 steps. Here, there are 8 basic directories I had created on the target host. 1, 2, 3. Finally, you can see create name directory successfully. In this slide, you can see SCP listening file and password file to the target host successfully in this slide. Here, you have seen that changing the value of host in file listener.ora to be host name of target host successfully. You can also see SCP, the latest RMAN Backupsets file here, and the control file here to the target host successfully. Here, you have seen that SCP log change tracking file to the target host successfully. Here. This slide and the next one indicate that SCP RMAN Backupsets of source Oracle database to the target host successfully. Remote copy or valid RMAN Backupsets to local successfully. Next, 4 slides shows that storing SP file, control file, and date files from RMAN Backupsets step by step. 1, 2, SP file, this is restoring SP file. Next is restoring control file. This is starting date file backup. Starting date file backup set restore. You can see it's listing this OracleDB file, 12DB file, and some production DB file. Next two slides indicates that switching online redo log files to become offline archive log files successfully and SCP them to the target host successfully as well. Yeah, this promote message, prompt message. This is prompt message. These two number of slides show that recovering database using all the archive log files previously mentioned successfully. This is prompt message. Here, it indicates that opening Oracle database with reset logs, starting listener, and appending an Oracle instance entry into the file etc tape successfully on the target host. Okay. You can see that Oracle database on the target host is opening with the method of read-write. And this indicates that the Oracle database on the target host is opening successfully. So, in this slide, you can scan these two QR codes 1, 2, respectively to acquire source code that is located on my GitHub repository. Thank you so much. If you have some questions, we can answer here. If our questions are so many, I can specially wrote a blog note from my WordPress weblog. Thank you. Now it's time to ask your questions one by one.